So last week I was saying I have my I was getting correction data and sending it over my my little telemetry radios that are laying right here, and that seemed to be working. And I was saying I also wanted to try to get my cell phone to work, which the problem is it's a cell phone that I've got a plan through track phone, and they're trying to lock me out of. They say specifically they're locking out the tethering through Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So I didn't know if I could get it to work any other way. And Ardusimple had just put out an announcement saying we got new software load on your cell phone, and one of their options was to talk out USB. So I went in and ordered a cable, a USB cable. You got to get an on-the-go adapter cable to plug into your phone, and you can hook it up to whatever you want. And that showed up on Saturday. It's supposed to come up last Friday, but it showed up on Saturday. I plugged it in and hooked it up to. So here's the cable. View speaker. So the cable is just this part right here, this gray thing. So it's got a USB on the go connector on this end. That's a type C because my phone is type C, and then it's just got an A, brings it out to an A type USB connector. So you just plug in a standard USB cable into it. So there's a standard USB to a mini. And this is one of those little boards you can buy either from SparkFun or go on Amazon and buy it. It just converts the USB to the TTL level signals out here. And this one's nice. It's got a jumper. You can set it to either 5 volts or 3.3 volts. But I just wired this up, and so I unplugged the telemetry radio, plugged this in instead, fired the whole thing up, and to my amazement, it actually works. So I can just take my cell phone, just a plain old, just a plain old cell phone that's got the USB connector on it, and load up the app and start the app, and it talks to the GPS receiver, and that does indeed work. And to start with, I just using connecting to my home network with the phone, and that was all working. I thought I really needed to test out the cell phone, so I said, went in the phone to settings, said turn off the Wi-Fi, turn on the data, the cell phone data, and it still worked. So that looks like that will indeed work. And the only other thing I really need to do is go drive around the block to make sure it works. But considering my old that cell modem hotspot box that I had, that seemed to work wherever I went. So I assume the phone would work also. So that's basically where I'm at with that. And so any questions on that? Oh, another thing that comes up is that, if I'm going to use my cell phone and one of the options is to use Bluetooth, possibly I can get one of those little SparkFun Bluetooth boards and hook up to the receiver and then tell the phone to connect to that. And I think there's an article on Ardusimple telling you how to do that. But I don't know where my module is. I bought one, 10 years ago, and I have no idea where it is. So I probably won't look into that right at the moment, but so that's yet another option. So I'm getting a whole list of different ways I can do this, and that's kind of where that project is.
You may have said it and I missed it. What app actually runs on the phone?
It's something Ardusimple just came out. If you go to their website and here, let's go down this path, see if I can really screw things up again today. See if I get totally lost. Let me go to my browser. Let's see, make sure there's nothing embarrassing here. I'll just fire up. Let's go here, share screen, and say screen 2. Now I'm going to ask, can you see my browser now? It should say zoom on the browser. Can you see that? I take that as a yes. Okay, well, so if I go here and if I go to
nodding our head, yes.
Yeah, that's great. So if I go to Ardusimple and stop it, back up here. My problem last week was I was typing stuff into links into the chat, and then when you put the chat on the screen, somehow they lock out chat, so chat will not display, and that's why I was so confused last week when I was trying to do all this stuff. So just looking under news here, because since they sent it on email, I found it under news. And then it says, in fact, right there, it says how to connect RTK receiver to iOS, iPhone or iPad via Bluetooth. So it's here they're trying to sell you a particular module that plugs right into the board. So anyway, down here, here's the one right here. It says introducing GNSS Master app. If I click on that one, and this is the software. So you go out here, you go out to the one of the random app stores and say load it. It's called GNSS Master. You just load it up, and then here's one of the menus here, and see under here, I've got USB serial or Bluetooth, or, well, I see it's got BLE also. And then TCP/IP, I don't know. I didn't go down that path, so I'm not sure what you need on that. I suppose you could have a talk right, say, to your laptop, and then get the data into that and do whatever you want. So anyway, this is the app that I'm running, and I'll just do this, and I'll put it into chat where I can't display it, but I'll just put it in there to remind me to do something with that. So that's where that's at. And I said, oh, by the way, it shows up right on the top. Come on. It says how to connect an RTK receiver to iOS device. Well, back in the old days, they said, how do you do it on an Android device? So let's go down and see if I can find that one. Well, let's do this. Is that working? Say Bluetooth there, surveyor kit. And of course, they're trying to sell me things here. They're trying to sell you little modules that plug right into your board. Why are things running so slow today? La kit. And it's not shown up here, but they had an article early on that told you how to do that. I think they said, take the little mod. I think it was the little SparkFun module. They plug it into the receiver and then load up. They had this Lefebvre software, which is I think that's some guy's name, and he wrote up an Intrip client. You load it onto your cell phone, and it will talk out different options. And it turns out that one will not talk out the USB. So I got that one to run and give me correction data, but he either wants to talk Bluetooth or some kind of Wi-Fi, and I didn't have those options handy. So that would be another option if, say, if I switch over to the Bluetooth adapter, I could go with that. So I guess that's all I'm gonna talk about there. Just if you want, you can go out and look up that app, and it'll tell you what it's doing. And again, this is connects to, like, say, in my case, I go to the Department of Transportation and say, give me your correction data. And there's other options. Say, like in Al's case, he's got his box sitting in his backyard for his base station. He could plug that in his home internet, and then you could put a cell phone on your vehicle. And then if that will connect to the internet, that's you instead of trying to run Bluetooth across your yard, across your property, you can feed it out to the internet, and then your cell phone can connect to the internet and then get you the data that way by one of several ways, either with an Intrip client or just basically connect directly to a ROS socket and just transfer the data. So again, there's lots of options on that. So that's let's see, stop sharing. Okay, so I don't think I screwed that up too bad this time, so I guess we'll leave it at that. So that's what I did. I got that running, and theoretically, if I go out and drive around, I could now get my correction data and everything. Everybody would be happy again.
Cool. Do you mind commenting on what's your personal views on Bluetooth and how reliable it is?
I don't know. I've used it before. I got that little module and I was able to talk to it. And other than that, I don't know anything about it. And probably, like in this case, I'd probably have a range of about 2 feet. I'm not gonna try to put the phone in my pocket and let the thing drive around and try to stay connected. I just put it, just a convenient way to connect the two together is why I would use that if I go down that path. That's all I got.
I can go next because mine's gonna be real quick.
Okay.
I've gotten basically nothing done with dealing with the other two computers, and I guess I do have the Ubuntu loaded on to my dad's old laptop. It's got 8 gig of RAM, so that's nice. Next is to get all of the ROS stuff loaded and then start playing around with the Turtle Sim again. But of course, I didn't document what I did very well, so I'm having to remember, relearn, research what I did the last time.
Just a minor point on that. If you've still got an old computer that you did the stuff on, go to your command line, type history, and it'll show you all the commands you've typed in from day one. And that way, if nothing else, it can kind of spark your memory as to what you were doing at the time. And you might be able to get the actual commands that you're using at the time. And I like to just randomly every couple months or so type in history and put the greater than sign to direct it, and then put it into a named file. So I'll put like the date and say history, and then put the date on it. And that way I can go back over several years and I'll have a bunch of those stored up. So, you know, when you first start out, it's every command from the time you loaded Ubuntu and turn it on. So that's command number 1, and then command number 2 up to wherever you're at now. And eventually that's got like a buffer, like 2,000 commands or something. So eventually that rolls over and you lose the old stuff. And that's why I like to just save it occasionally. So you can go and just search that up for whatever you're looking for. And
Even if you've got multiple terminals open?
that gets to be a problem, because I think what it does, the last terminal you close, it's saved the history for that one. So that does get to be a problem if you're running multiple terminals. And I've searched that before. You might be able to say, do some special commands or load up something special. So it'll take the history from all of those and merge them all together, but I can't tell you right
Okay.
offhand how to do that.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
But that's just something handy to keep in your back pocket, knowing that, well, I can go look at that and find out what I was doing, because, you know, you'll be going down the line, it says change directory here, list these files, and then it says enter this ROS launch command or whatever. So that kind of
Right.
gives you an idea where you were.
Anything else,
Okay.
Gary?
That was all I had.
Oh, that was short.
Mine's going to be pretty short too. I'm at the moment still trying to get my ESP32. Well, my setup, I've got an ESP32 driving my radio control device, and I've got an ESP32 to handle low-level control on the tractor, which then is connected via USB cable to the laptop, which is running ROS. So I need 2 data paths. One is for radio control data, and the other is for the laptop to talk ROS one way or the other to the tractor ESP32. So for example, when it's in autonomous mode, it would send command velocity data from ROS to the low-level controller. I've pretty well come to the conclusion that I can't get this radio lib library, which uses the DIO 0 pin for monitoring when the LORA has received data, in ROS Serial to work at the same time. I mean, it's been a bit painful for me. Let me see where, how do I make that? When Zoom has its menu down and it's blocking the bookmarks, how do I get that to go away? Different ways to solve that. So I took what I thought was a very simple program and was running LORA with this library, with my radio and ROS, and this basically they would not data sync. It could not get it to connect. And then I would use the same program to block out the LORA stuff and just use Println to get output instead of using, you know, a simple ROS message like a log info message. And I, you know, this simply wouldn't synchronize. I think it's what you get is an error that says unable to sync or sync and resetting. So that was my problem, and so I've been on a bit of a journey to try to figure out what to do about that, and I think I've concluded that was just going to use straight up serial communication, not use ROS serial, but just send data back and forth via, the USB port. And I got that to work fine. And this is a little routine, like I can say get linear X, and it's got a stream of data that's comma delimited, and this little routine will strip out the comma delimited data. And in my world, I put linear X in the first position and angular Z in the second position, and this little program works fine. So I'm able to I'm going to say limp by using that. And then I had the bright idea of, well, this is only going to let me send data one way. What if I want to send data back up to the laptop? So I've been banging my head against the wall on trying to implement what I'll call a very rudimentary communication. I'm trying to get to the pseudocode. So I would have one program that sits on the ESP32, and I was just trying to get what I'll call a ping pong process going back and forth that would send a command that says, hey, are you I'm ready to receive, and get a command back that says continue, or ready to send, continue to send, and then another program that would wait for the pong signal and then say, hey, can I send you a ready to receive, and basically a back and forth handshake, simple handshake. And I'm such a terrible programmer that I can't seem to get that to work, although I've gotten close. So that's where I'm at. I'm deciding whether to spend any more time on this back and forth thing, or just go with my simple one-way serial communication. And if I ever need two-way communication, maybe I could just put another UART to USB, hook it up to the ESP, and have another physical connection. So anyway, that's where I'm at. And all that, my software, I've updated my two GitHubs with the different stuff that I've been writing. And this is where Jeff says, oh, I've done that before. Here, this is how you solve that. Come on, Jeff.
I've done that before, but I don't remember how any of it works. I did it back when we were in ROS Agriculture, and I haven't really touched it since then. So
Yeah.
and my other thing is I'm not trying to merge my radio control data into my big Linux program. I just simply have it receives the data and sends it to my microcontroller on the board and drives the vehicle around. If I want to, I can send it up to a ROS so I know what if nothing else, I can log that in a bag file. So later I can come back and say, what was the joystick set at? What were these switches set at? But I just have just whatever the sample code that came with the radio stuff, sending messages back and forth. And that's basically what I did on that.
So if you ever get to the point then of monitoring battery voltage on the vehicle and you want to get that up, are you just going to use ROS Serial and hope ROS Serial works for you?
And I don't use ROS Serial. I just, from my low-level microcontroller up to my ROS computer, I just simply send messages back and forth. I think what you were just saying, you drop down to that level. That's basically what I do. So on my microcontroller, I'd say read the A to D, get the battery voltage, scale it, and just send a command or just send a message up to the ROS computers saying, this is a battery message and here's the voltage. And then at that end, the node at that end just says, oh, it's a battery message. So I'm going to publish that as a battery topic. So
And you don't worry about,
mine's pretty straightforward.
are you worrying at all about collision? Because coming from the ROS computer is going to be, command velocity data. That's going to be going to your tractor. And you've got your battery voltage that you want to send up. Do you worry at all about the collisions?
No, because if I send something from ROS down to the thing, I'm only sending one thing at a time. So down there it says, oh, I received a message. Is it a command velocity or is it a, whatever it happens to be? And I just parse the message separately and send the stuff back up the other direction. That's, basically that's totally separate. I just simply say, here's a battery message or here's an odometry message. So I either create a message that says that the battery voltage or create a message that says odometry data and just say transmit. And I'm only sending one thing at a time. And on the ROS node, it says, it gets a callback, says, oh, I received a message and happens to be type odometry or type battery. And that just keeps everything separate at that point.
Yeah, I haven't looked to see how fast or how frequent Pure Pursuit sends command velocity data. I was worried about collisions. That's why I was spending the effort on some sort of handshaking code.
Well, you do need something so you can't send data faster than you can process it. So if you send a message from, say, like in your case, you say from Pure Pursuit, you're sending that down. Well, it's just that you have to receive that and process it before the next command comes in. And if you're running, your ESP32 is pretty fast, so it probably there's a good chance you'll be able to process that and be sitting there waiting for the next thing to happen. And if you really had, if you really had to, you can say when the message comes in, copy that to some kind of like a FIFO buffer. So you don't actually process it immediately. You just stuff it in this buffer. And then as your main loop comes around and says, oh, is there anything in my buffer? If there is, pull it out and process it. And if not, just ignore it. So that's, if you do run into a problem where you're sending stuff and it can't process it fast enough, then you can start doing things like that.
So if I just check, bytes available as 0, I'm thinking of the command velocity is going to come down, say at, pick a number, 5 Hertz. I'm thinking if I want to send up battery voltage, how do I squeeze in between those 5 Hertz? And I think what I hear you saying is, hey, if serial line shows available, send it up.
Well, say in this case, the two are separate. The data you're sending down has nothing to do with the data you're sending up. So you can be,
I get that.
shoving messages down. If you want to shove something back up, you just say, oh, here's a battery voltage. I'm going to transmit it. You don't care what the receiver is doing at that point. So whether it's a
Because
physical,
you'd be on your one's on the receive line and the other's on the transmit. They're not tied together.
right?
Well, I only have one physical connection. It's called TTY-ACM0.
But it has 2 wires, doesn't it?
But you've got a transmit channel and a receive channel within that one port. So that they really have nothing to do with each other.
Transmit channel and a receive channel on TTY-ACM0 that's connected to, let's just say it's a FTDI chip.
Okay.
You're saying there's 2 channels in there?
No, I'm saying you've got a transmit line and a receive line. See, if you got a physical UART there, you've got a transmit pin and a receive pin. Other end, those are connected to a receive pin and a transmit pin. And the transmit and receive have nothing to do with each other. So if I want to send something, I don't care if it's receiving data. I just say, if I want to send a message, I just say, if you have to check to make sure whatever the low level handshake is, if you're outputting characters, you have to make sure the previous character was sent. But as long as it does that, you can just pound out a message like a whole string of stuff. and it just goes out the line. It has nothing to do with the data coming back in. Inside of these chips, those two things are totally separate. And that's why I like going with the UARTs, because I can just go to the transmit line, just jam out a message, and I don't care what anybody else is doing. And then at the other end it says, oh, I received it, and it processes it. And coming the other direction, it says, oh, I've got something sent down. It doesn't care what the other side's doing. It just jams it down, and it shows up down at the low level, and you say, I got a message, and you process it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you're teaching me something about, again, I'm not on 2 wires. I'm on a USB port that's connected to FTDI chips on both ends, right?
Which
Where the
has 2
wires-
wires. It's got the 2 data wires internal.
Yeah, no, I'll give that a, see if I can, what sort of progress I can make with that.
Well, it's not that the USB has 2 data wires in it. It's just that it's got enough big bloated software on top of it to take care of all that stuff. So it sends packets back and forth, and it figures all that stuff out in the background, so you don't have to. But it essentially emulates just a physical, like a physical UART. So from your point of view, you can say, I want to transmit something, just go ahead and transmit it and not worry about what's coming back their direction. To that, essentially that's something totally separate.
Yeah, I had the mental model of it was, like a rail line, and you only get one train down at a time. So
Well, it is a rail line, but you got 2 railroad tracks. One of them's going north, one of them's going south, and
yeah,
you could do blasting down there because you don't have the other guys on the other tracks going the other direction.
a bad move for you, because the rails need 2 tracks. But okay, I get you. Try that. Thank you. So that's all I got is, plus my laptop died, so my Lenovo is at the shop to see if they can recover it. So wouldn't fully boot. It would get to either Windows or Ubuntu very start screen, and then it would start rebooting again. So I don't know what the problem was with that. So I'm on a spare at the moment. Oh, but your page last time, you may not remember, you made a comment or two about page size or swap memory size, one of those, I think.
Oh, the swap space, yeah.
Yeah, that daggone machine was sitting at like 2 gigabytes and had 16 gigabytes of memory. I'm like, whoa, this is not right. And yeah, so that was a good tip. Thank you.
And that's just one of those funny little things that's supposed to default to when you load Linux. It's supposed to go out and look, see how much memory you have. They say as a rule of thumb, set your swap space equal to how much memory you have, which the two really don't have anything to do with each other. But that you got to put you have to have some number to start with. And for some reason they were defaulting to 1 gigabyte, and I don't know why. So that again, I'm fighting with that on my main computer again because I haven't gone in and increased that space yet. So just one more a little annoying thing that as we progress on, stuff gets less and less obvious and less useful as we get newer stuff.
Another reason why you hate computers.
Yeah, that's part of the list. That list is getting pretty long too.
Oh, final thing, I tried, I mentioned it on a call before, I think ESP Now, which was another, LORA operates at 915 megahertz. ESP Now is an Espressif proprietary protocol. I tried that on my boards. Super fast. Distance was not even close to being usable. To say I want 100 feet to be able to click the e-stop. So I was frustrated by that. Maybe I could improve it with directional antennas, but yeah, and random nerd tutorials. They had a number of people that put out stuff on ESP Now, and they're like, hey, we get 700 feet or something, like maybe in perfect conditions. I struggled to get 10 feet. So yeah, super fast. Didn't interfere with ROS Serial, but the ability to handle a noisy environment wasn't there.
When you mentioned that ESP32 now, I for some reason I had the impression that just a protocol they put on top of Bluetooth. So it's actually talking back and forth with Bluetooth. So whatever what are the characteristics of that are is what you're going to get.
Yeah, it could be. It was definitely near range. What enticed me was random nerd tutorials said they were getting 700 feet. So they ought to have some of that. Yeah, not with what we're doing.
Another thing on these little boards that sometimes it'll have an antenna connector right on the board. But you got to be careful. You can't just plug an antenna and make it work. I think you have to like unsolder a resistor and move it. And they're little microscopic parts, so it's hard to get to that. But if you really need to, look up your board and look up external antenna and see what people are saying about it. It could be you can just stick an external antenna, and it's better than the little chip antenna or the little coil of wire they put on the board. You might be able to just improve it that way too. So, but there's different things you could think about.
Yeah, I have the ESPs that have an external antenna by default. So I tried it on 2 ESP boards that had the wire thing on the board just to get it to work. And then I moved it to the boards with the permanent, I don't know, they call that Apex or IPEX connector, that little tiny radio connector with a little tiny 4-inch antenna. Wouldn't even go through my garage door, which was mostly glass. Anyway, that's all I have. I promise.
So I wanted to ask you about when you had your lawn tractor out in the yard, you're driving around and you said you were trying to get the pure pursuit to go and it got to the top and turned the wrong direction. I just wonder if you looked into that anymore.
I have not, because I think part of the problem was the command velocity data was being, I don't think the command velocity data was coming through at a rate that was anywhere near, I think there would have been like a 4-second delay in getting command velocity data. So I think it was sitting there without real data because it was blocked again by this ROS Serial LORA conflict. That's my hypothesis. I haven't tried to test it anymore until I know that I'm getting a good rate of command velocity data and I can turn the e-stop off and on reliably.
Okay. I was just thinking, since you have all that data in your bag file, you should be able to analyze that while it's driving around and see what it's trying to tell it to do. And since it blatantly turned the wrong direction when you got up to the top, it just seems like, things like that, it should be pretty obvious. Is it telling it to turn the right direction or not? And, things like that you can look at.
The other thing when I was looking at the bag file is I was using the pure pursuit path that had been created by the Dubin's program, and so it has 80 line items just to go say 15 meters, and so I was like, well, I can't really tell. I don't know if I had the right topics or whatever to be able to see this is where it said it wanted to go and this is where the steering angle was turning to get there. So I have a very simple path now that I wanted to follow when I get back out to do the testing. So I can do what you're just suggesting, and that is analyze that bag file. Very frustrating. That's all I got.
And that's all I got.
That's all I got.